And tonight we want to keep the momentum going by presenting the thoughts of one of the world's foremost experts in out-of-body experience, William Buhlman. Our goal of this series is to better understand both lucid dreaming and out-of-body experience and examine the intriguing relationship between them. Once we began to look at the connection between these two types of experience, a number of fascinating questions started to emerge. And what we decided to do is to pose this set of questions to each of our speakers. So we started with Tom, then our panel, and then William tonight. For those of you who do not know much about William, he is one of America's leading experts on astral travel and out-of-body experience. His 30 years of extensive personal out-of-body explorations give him a unique insight into the subject. He's very passionate about the subject, and he loves teaching others how to explore these realms. So please join me in welcoming William, and I'll ask the first question of the evening.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone.
The first question is about your background. Could you tell us a little about your interest and experience in both lucid dreaming and out-of-body experience, how you became interested in them, got started, developed them, and their impact on your life? Okay, take it away, William.
My first experience with this subject happened back in 1972, and to give you some background on it, I was not a believer in this. I had never heard of out-of-body or astral projection. I was in college at the time, and a friend of mine actually had a spontaneous out-of-body or astral projection. And it changed him. It was a shocking event, and he was, for lack of a better word, almost transformed by it. Because both of us were agnostics. We didn't believe in any, metaphysical type of things. I had never even heard of the word metaphysics. And we have to put in perspective, this is 1972. It's before even the term out-of-body existed. Back then, it was just called astral projection. And anyway, he shared with me his experience, and he was blown away by it. And I was not a believer, but I wanted to experience the same thing for myself, just to be able to prove it to myself, because I was pretty much an atheist and didn't believe that we continued beyond the body or any of that. Now keep in mind, I was about 20 years old at the time, so it's been 41 years ago. And what happened was I decided to do some exploration, and I found that there was actually some books that taught this subject. Not many back in the early 70s, but I found a book that had some techniques. So what I did, after doing some reading, I found a technique which I call today the target technique. And I began to do this target technique. And it's a very simple technique. And I'll share it with you briefly, because now, of course, I teach it in my workshops at the Monroe Institute. But I just visualized 3 objects that was in my mother's home. I was in a dorm room at a college that was about 15 miles away from my mother's home at the time. And I was in a very single bed, very small room. And I visualized these 3 targets, which were silly little objects that I had made, and my mother kept, I think only a mother would love, a picture of a painting that I had made, an ashtray that I had made, and a doorstop, and these were my targets. So what I did for every night as I fell asleep, I imagined, to the best of my ability, that I was going to each of these targets. I entered my mother's home in my imagination, walked to the objects, and pretended I was touching them. And I was new to visualization, and to be honest, nothing much happened for the first 15 days, certainly. And I continued to do it, though. And after about 20 days, I started to have some dream recall kicking in, but no OBEs. And to be quite frank, I doubted that this was real. And it was around the 24th day of doing this simple little technique of imagining myself walking to my mother's house and touching these 3 physical objects, that I suddenly awoken in my small bed, and I was on my side facing the wall. And what happened was I felt different. I felt a high energy sensation. And I reached out my arm, and when I reached out my arm actually entered the wall. And only then did it hit me. Oh my God, I did it. And I was extremely excited. And the next thing I knew, I was just thinking of standing. I'm standing by the foot of my bed, looking down on this lump, which was my body, of course. And it's like I'm in total amazement, astounded. I just remember thinking, oh my God, this is real. This is real. It was not a dream. It was not a lucid dream. And that's one thing I want to make clear. That I was fully conscious, fully aware. And I'm looking around this small little room, and then things began to happen that I could not even begin to explain. What appeared to me at the time was that the walls began to melt. And suddenly, on the other side of what used to be the external walls of my little dorm room, I noticed that there was someone watching me. It was a man with a beard and a robe. And I'll be totally honest with you, it scared me. And next thing I knew, bang, I'm back in my body. And that was my first experience. It was probably very brief, but for me, it was an earth-shaking change of everything. Because at that moment, I suddenly realized that these experiences were not just dreams. This was a real event. It changed my entire paradigm, because I was learning all this intellectual knowledge. And suddenly I realized, my God, there's other dimensions, and we can enter these other dimensions, and we have the ability to do this ourselves. We don't have to just read about it. And it changed my entire life. Suddenly this whole new world opened up. I became incredibly excited. I remember all night long writing notes about how the world has just changed for me. The universe has just changed. My entire concept of reality has suddenly shifted. And I began to get very, not only excited about it, but I began to explore it at that point heavily, every day. And this is, I could put it in perspective, this is 1972. I was 20, just in my 20s at the time. And it began a search. It began an adventure. And I realized after doing it, day after day after day, that I began to have a lot of experiences. And to be quite frank, I couldn't understand the experiences. There was no books that explained it. And I was just trying to plod along, try to figure out what was happening. But I knew they were real. I began to, let's just say, explore first my environment around me. I explored silly little things like and it sounds silly, but I started out sticking your head through walls and doors just to prove you could do it. And you're like an infant learning a new skill. And I can't put it any other way. And first you learn to crawl, which I did. I learned simple things like I knew from experience. I learned that I had to move away from my body about 10 feet. Or there was a tendency for me to be drawn back to my body. And I learned through trial and error how to proceed. And there was a lot of years of trial and error, to be quite honest, because there was no books out there to teach you this stuff that were accurate and give you real information about what to expect and how to do things. So I learned the hard way. And again, it was like you feel like you're a baby learning a whole new skill in a whole new, of course, reality. And I learned basic things, how to control my energy body, how to maintain my consciousness through affirmations, how to move beyond my existing physical world, by the parallel world I call it, how to communicate, how to maintain control over not only your state of consciousness, but your energy body, how to move from place to place, which is a little more challenging than people, it sounds like they, in some of these books you read. These things are a little more challenging because you have to maintain control over a very subtle energy body, because of course we don't possess, during an out-of-body experience, we do not have any biological body. Everything is created by your mind. Your perception, I learned quickly, is created by your mind and the way you focus your attention. So you have to learn these things. You have to learn a whole new skills of how to function beyond the physical body and how to function in your new energy body. Actually, it's not a new energy body, of course, but you have to learn the rules of the road of this new dimensional reality. And I pursued this for, as some of you know, for, of course, the last 41 years. And my books are the result of some of the experiences that I share through it. But just to give you some pivotal things that were important to me, about a year into my experiences, one of the first pivotal events for me was meeting my dead uncle. I didn't even try to pursue it. My uncle actually come to me. I was having an out-of-body experience in my mother's home, and I moved to my mother's living room, and it was very much in what people would consider a physical-like experience in many ways. And I look over and I hear this name, Willie. Somebody's calling my name. Now, there's so much stuff that I like to get across, but people do not talk in these states. All communication is through thought. You don't have vocal cords, of course. And people take this, you don't have biological ears, you don't have any of the organs we're used to. You have to learn how to communicate, you have to learn how to move, you have to learn all these things from the beginning, how to control everything that you're doing. But I started to get a handle on motion, at least, and was able to maintain my conscious awareness for 15, 20 minutes at a time. And suddenly my uncle says, Willie. I could hear this voice, which is a thought of Willie. And I turn around and there's my uncle, except my uncle who had died and he was very overweight and in his late 50s. Here before me was a young man of about 25 years old, but it was definitely the voice of my uncle. And he's asking me all these questions about how are you doing this, and he was curious about it. Of all things, he's asking me questions. I wanted to ask him questions about, what's it like to live here and stuff like that. And here he's literally inundated me with questions about how I'm having out-of-body experiences, which was at the moment caught me off guard. So that was one of my pivotal events that happened early on, probably in the first year. Later, not that much later, I also met my grandmother, which was, again, she was young, very young. I would say 26, 27 years old. And then the experiences, just to highlight a couple of them, I learned that I could go beyond, let's just say, what we perceive as the parallel world. And I learned as I went along. And one of the things I rapidly learned is that, and it's difficult to bring this across probably logically, the basis of our entire civilization is that we are physical human beings, and we build our entire civilization upon that. And unfortunately, our sciences and everything is built upon this premise that the physical world is the center of the universe. Well, one of the things I quickly discovered is that the physical world is, not only is it not the center of the universe, it's the epidermis of the universe. It's the farthest, densest, outermost part of the entire universe. To put it in perspective, what we perceive as reality is just a sliver of what actually exists. And that, for me, was one of the most shocking things I learned, because like you, I felt that the physical world was it, and that we were the center, and that everything else was like operating around it, where the opposite is actually true. The physical world is like such a tiny fraction of the totality of the universe we live within. It's the dense epidermis. It's the end result of a chain of events that are happening in the thought responsive interdimensional worlds that are far less dense. And when you have an out-of-body experience, what you're actually doing is transferring your awareness to a less dense energy body that already exists as part of us. Anyway, what I quickly learned was that the physical world is not, it's just a very small part of this vast continuum of consciousness and energy that exists out there. And that we have the ability to actually explore it on our own. But most importantly, I discovered that some of the basic premises that we hold so, let's just say they're sacred cows, and our science is built upon it. For instance, just to throw out a couple of them. Not only do we build our entire civilization on the concept that we're physical humans, one of the things I quickly found out was that as I prolonged my out-of-body experiences, I began, and this is a difficult thing to try to convey, but my arms and legs would begin to dissolve away. The longer I prolonged my out-of-body experiences, the more that my arms and legs would begin to dissolve away. And I also found if I actually looked at my hands would dissolve. And it took me a while to figure a lot of this out because it was so alien to me and my concept of reality. And it finally dawned on me after having experiences for years and years and years, was that, my God, we are not, collectively, all 7 billion of us, we are not humanoids. We're not human. Consciousness is not human. Consciousness is using a human form to just learn and grow. And I learned that the hard way. It was unbelievable when it first dawned on me. But after having years of experience and doing these experiments on my own, not only would my legs and arms begin to dissolve during these experiences, and by the way, I like to make it clear, this is not a lucid dream. I am fully conscious, fully aware, and actually you become far more conscious than you are in the physical body, far more aware, not less, as you go inward within these finer states. What would happen was my arms and legs would dissolve. I would become almost, for lack of a better word, a globe of consciousness but my vision would be 360 degrees. This vision that we have in the physical world is almost, we see the same as an animal sees. Our natural state of vision beyond the body is actually 360 degrees. And then what I discovered, again, this is over a period of decades I'm talking about now. I realized that not only do we become a teardrop or a sphere, but then we become a point of consciousness. In other words, the basic premise that science builds upon, this idea that we all are physical beings, and that this is the center point of the universe, is all flawed. And this is really the core problem, I think, in obtaining the answers. Because I noticed one of the key points of the questions that were asked of me was about the relationship of OBEs, lucid dreaming, consciousness, and how that fits into this model or conception of reality. And over the last 40 years, through trial and error and having 1,000 experiences, I have slowly developed my own model, yes. And just to be clear to everyone, I'm not a New Ager. As anyone who's read my books know, I present things as scientifically as I possibly can. I find as many flaws in the theosophical viewpoints these New Age viewpoints as I do in the scientific viewpoints. Because they're both often they're based on conjecture instead of actual exploration and perception from firsthand experience. So unfortunately, a lot of our assumptions that we base our, let's just say, physical life upon ends up being quite flawed. For instance, one is this concept that we're physical beings, which we're not. It's a temporary state we're using. And the other one is also about the nature of consciousness. One of the things I quickly found out, this whole concept that science seems to absolutely depend upon, is this concept that the brain, the electrical firings of neurons, are creating consciousness. OBEs prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, anybody who has had one knows that you can think extremely logically, you can function extremely well, and matter of fact, you can function even better than you do in the physical body if you go into the higher states. The point is, obviously that's another falsehood that has become part of our, let's just say, scientific model that we all base our current perception of the universe and ourselves. So the basic premises, I feel strongly, that we build our current sciences upon is totally flawed. The center of consciousness is not the brain. The brain is a hard drive that stores temporary information that we need to function in a biological body for a very, very short period of time. And our journey continues. Our evolution continues inward. Another flaw is that evolution is physical. What I have found through decades of experience is that evolution is an inner evolution of consciousness. Evolution is about the evolution of consciousness. It has bodies, physical forms are just vehicles used to accomplish the evolution of consciousness that's occurring. We're going through trials and tribulations in the physical world, and we learn from them. And we learn slowly, as some of us are learning. And one of the things I like about your organization is that you're investigating this concept is that we are multidimensional beings. And we are learning and growing through matter. We are not matter, no more than we are our cars. We use it and then we dispose of it and we move on. We transfer our awareness to our finer, less dense energy body that is already a part of us. And this is what the true evolution of consciousness is, this onward journey through experience. We are learning through experience, yes, and we're using biological bodies to gather this knowledge through the experiences that we have. So one of the great things about out-of-body exploration, I feel, is that it gives us, and this is to me the most important part, it gives us the ability to obtain the answers ourselves. Most people go their entire lives basing their entire concept of reality on essentially the beliefs and the writings, the theories and philosophies of others, don't they? Isn't it true? They base everything, whether it be their religious beliefs, their scientific beliefs, that's all based upon someone else's, essentially, speculation. We have the ability through out-of-body exploration to become explorers ourselves and to obtain the answers ourselves. And the big questions are, what are we? You know, where do we come from? Where are we going and what is our purpose? And what I find so strange, as some of you know, I do 6-day workshops at the Monroe Institute and I lecture widely around the world. And I'm always amazed that 7 billion of us are on this 90-year journey in the physical world, And people don't, I'm amazed how many people don't even ask the questions. They just assume because someone told them, oh, the answers aren't available. They don't even try to obtain the answers. They just go about their life like accepting whatever spoon-fed belief was handed to them. So what I try to do in my lectures around the world is that I ask questions like, what would you believe today if you were born in Iraq? What religious beliefs would you have if you were born in Afghanistan? What would be the center point of your existence right now? What would be the core of your beliefs if you were born in India? And obviously it would be totally different. So what does that mean? The point is that we have the ability, if we are willing to become explorers ourselves, to obtain the answers for ourselves, because we can't depend on beliefs, and to be quite frank, we can't depend on many of the scientific conclusions out there, because I find that both, not only religious, but the scientific conclusions are often, unfortunately, very flawed and based upon physical observations. Keep in mind, when I know science needs to be, it's through proof. They are looking for proof. I fully understand that. But what is often overlooked is the fact that when you examine matter, you're examining a 1/10 of 1/10 of 1% of reality. And that is not where the answers are found. We have to expand our states of consciousness, I feel, and go inward through, one way is through OBEs, of course, to begin to get a broader vision of not only ourselves, but what reality truly is. The question that was given to me is, what's my concept of reality or conception? Do I have a model? And it's simply this. We live in a multi-dimensional continuum. OBEs prove this. Lucid dreams prove this. Meditation proves this. And we are multi-dimensional beings. Each and every one of us are multi-dimensional beings. We all possess multi-dimensional energy bodies. And our physical body is the external body, the dense outer vehicle of our consciousness currently. The reason this is real to us is because we are focusing 100% of our attention upon this energy body. What an OBE, which by the way, the term is very poorly constructed. An out-of-body experience is not really what it sounds to be. An out-of-body experience is actually the transfer of our awareness, or a portion of our awareness, into our less dense energy body that exists already with us. It's an inner transfer of our own consciousness, or conscious awareness, to the point that we activate that energy body and begin to control it. That's truly what an out-of-body experience is. It's actually an inward shift of our conscious awareness. And a lot of times even the term out-of-body can be confusing. And I don't want to go too deeply into this. But to give you a conceptual model, we are living in a multi-dimensional continuum, and when you go into states of meditation, when you go into states of lucid dreaming, when you go into states of OBE, you are shifting your consciousness from the outer physical vehicle and moving into your finer energy body. That is my model. And there's degrees of this, and that's what determines the difference between these states, depending on how far inward you are shifting your consciousness, in a sense, just to keep it as clear as possible. In other words, and I write about this in my books, and I detail this not only in Adventures Beyond the Body, but in Secret of the Soul, about how in this continuum we go from physical states of consciousness All of us dream. What is that? It is we're beginning to connect with that subtle aspect of ourselves, because during that third of our life, we're letting go our, let's just say, focus on the physical. And when we do so, we begin to shift our conscious awareness inward into our more subtle energy body. And then we experience that as a dream. When we enhance the conscious awareness present in this shift of consciousness, it becomes a more lucid dream. Now, there's many lucid dreaming books that talk about 7 levels of lucid dreaming. In other words, there's levels of lucidity that people enter, because it has to do with the percentage of conscious awareness that's present in the experience will determine what the experience is for you. As we progress even further inward, and let's just say a higher percentage of consciousness awareness is present, that's when we begin to enter into the OBE, the out-of-body state, and you start to become fully conscious and aware, and you realize, oh my God, I am not my body. I'm operating separate from my body. My full ego awareness is present, but I'm operating completely separate from my body. And what gets even more fascinating, there's levels of awareness in the OBE state, just as well as there is in the lucid dreaming state. Because remember, it's always about the amount of conscious awareness that you are holding, that you are maintaining in your subtle energy body when you make this transfer of consciousness, or what is today commonly called an out-of-body experience. But the more conscious awareness you have, the more aware you will be, the more real the experience will be for you, and you can upgrade this. One of the things I quickly learned in even the first 5 years of my out-of-body experiences is that I could upgrade my state of consciousness. I could shift my awareness by using affirmations like awareness now. You can use a powerful affirmation to enhance your state of consciousness and begin to shift even more awareness into that energy body, because often it's overlooked. Our conscious awareness is existing currently within all dimensions right this moment. All of us are operating and maintaining multiple energy bodies now, whether you're aware of it. And let me give you an idea, so maybe you are more aware of it. Every emotion you have, that is your emotional body. Every thought you have is your intellectual body. In other words, you are connecting to these energy bodies, but you're doing it in a very, let's say, low energy, low consciousness way. In other words, these states of consciousness are already within us because we exist in every dimension of the universe. And when someone has a lucid dream, they're beginning to shift into this state, but they're not far enough into it, based on my experiences and many others, to fully activate their energy body, or what many people today call the astral body, which is a term I dislike, but it's part of our culture. The point is that we all possess multiple energy bodies, that we are a microcosm of the universe, each of us. But we're always operating, because you still have a physical body. And another, let me use myself as an example. When I have an out-of-body experience, my body is still functioning. My physical body is still functioning. So a portion of my consciousness is still present, operating, let's just say, my physical body. In other words, the continuum doesn't change. It's the percentages of conscious awareness that's shifted. I still am operating all of these energy bodies. I'm just shifting my consciousness from my physical outer body to my less dense inner body. And the more I do that, the more consciously aware I am, the more freedom I have in that state, the more, let's just say, the more capabilities that I have. In other words, once you begin to become more capable, you have the ability to easily walk through walls, to fly, to do anything you want. But that's a learning curve that people have. Like myself, it took me 5 years to get to the point where I thought I was starting to get some handle on it. And I'm just being totally honest about it. Some people are naturals. I don't consider I work hard at self-initiating my experiences. For me, it's like a daily meditation. And we'll talk about that in a moment, about techniques that you do. I self-initiate experiences. One of the wonderful things I found, though, is that as we open up to these experiences, they become more and more spontaneous. And you begin to have spontaneous experiences that can be just mind-blowing. But you open up to this multidimensional self within you. And then, as the more that we open to it, the more your experiences develop. And the more, let's just say, opportunities you have to obtain the answers for yourself. And that's why for 4 decades, my main goal was to obtain the answers. I want to know where I come from. I want to know where I go. I want to know what my purpose is. I want to know what is reality? What is this thing we're in? Why am I going through this process? These are important questions. And I find that this is, for me and for many others, it's an effective way to obtain the answers. But it takes effort, it takes commitment, it takes, let's just say, dedication. It's like a meditation you do every day. Okay, getting back to my model. That is essentially my conceptual model. I am a microcosm of the universe. I shift inward in my OBEs, and I can continue. What gets exciting is, and what I've discovered, especially in the last 15 years, is that I have the ability to shift way beyond the astral, way beyond the bardos that the Tibetans talk about. I can shift beyond form. I can go inward to where the answers truly lie. Call it what you will. I don't like to put labels on things. But we have the capability of moving beyond the astral, or what is considered the form-based dimensions, and explore even further into the core, the source of reality. And we can do that ourselves by just continuing to go inward within ourselves. The answers, by the way, are never found outside of ourselves, because we are the answer. All of us are the answer, because we are the universe in miniature. We are on all dimensions. That's what's so wild about it. Here we are, all of us are searching on the outside, and I'm the only author that will probably say this. Everybody's going from book to book trying to find the answers, when the answers lie within us. And it's true, but we have to find an effective way to obtain the answers. And for many of us, out-of-body exploration is one way to obtain this, if you're willing to devote the time and the effort. Now, one of the other questions was, and I covered it a little bit, was about the connection between lucid dreaming, altered states, and OBEs. And it all has to do with this continuum. The more that we can begin to shift our states of consciousness, the more we can begin to gain greater and greater, let's just say we become more and more effective at gaining some level of control over our ability to explore inwardly within ourselves. And this is why I feel this is so important. I'll give you an example. A lot of people, I know there's a lot of questions about lucid dreaming. And I'll share an experience to give you an idea of the difference. I had a home in Maryland with a swimming pool, and I had a dream, a normal dream, where I was walking around the swimming pool every day. There were small frogs would get stuck in the skimmers, and if I didn't pull them out every morning, they would drown. And this is in a dream. I would do this every morning in the summertime, but guess, of course, what happens in my dream? I'm doing this in my dream. I'm walking around in my dream, pulling small frogs out of the skimmer in my pool. So, I'm in a dream, totally unconscious pretty much, but I begin to become aware. I pull out a frog, and what happens? The frog begins to talk to me in the dream. And the frog starts saying some very bad four-letter words to me as I hold it up. And it's, it's like, I'm in a dream, and I'm going, frogs don't talk. Frogs don't talk, and frogs definitely don't say these four-letter words. And then I began to become more lucid because I started to become more aware. Why did I become more aware? Because I'm questioning my state of consciousness. As I became more aware, the frog became even more and more vivid and aware. I mean, I became more aware. I was looking at the frog, but the frog became even more, and I'm like, oh my God, I must be dreaming. And at that moment, guess what happened? The lucid dream didn't become more aware. In my experience, the dream scenario dissolved away, and the next thing I knew, I was in the vibrational state, floating half in and half out of my body. And we'll talk about this in a moment, in what I term the vibrational state. In other words, I was partially out of my body during the dream state. But then, through experience, I knew, I knew instantly what was going on. And then I could focus away from my body and start a fully conscious out-of-body experience. In other words, in this scenario, I went from a dream to a lucid dream to an out-of-body experience, all within a matter of 5 minutes. Time is irrelevant, of course, but you get the idea. And it happened all within one, and that's the difference. It was about the degree of conscious awareness that was present in my experience made all the difference in how I perceived that dream. And that's truly the difference. Now, what I have found is that anomalies in dreams are sent to us. I feel, this is my perception of it, anomalies are sent to us. In other words, strange things that don't belong in your dream. And we all have them. Examine your life when you go home tonight and begin to think about all the weird dreams you may have that don't fit. Things, I had them where there's a lion under the kitchen table, and the dream books will tell you, you're hiding your power. It's baloney. It's total. It's an anomaly, I feel, that your higher self is giving you to basically, it's like, wake up, become more aware. That's why I think these events are actually being sent to us from our higher self or higher states of consciousness within ourselves. Remember, dreams are messages. They're communication. Whether we understand them or not is up to us. But all dreams, whether they're lucid or non-lucid, are definite communication on some level. Unfortunately, most humans don't understand them at all because they don't take the time to study them. My point is that these things are all part and parcel of this multidimensional self. It fits into the model that I talked about earlier. Because our higher aspect of ourself, and I don't use the word soul very often, just call it our higher self. Our higher aspect of ourself is sending us information that we can use. And it's up to us to use this information. And often, if you begin to look at and analyze your dreams, you'll see that you'll begin, especially after a talk like this, you'll begin to become more and more aware of these anomalies. And they're like, in other words, they're like messages to become more aware in that state of consciousness or in that dream. Upgrade. It gives you that opportunity to upgrade your awareness if you choose to. And that's how anomalies are used. My point is, this is all part of this continuum of consciousness that I talk about all the time. But it's up to us to become more aware of the process so we can begin to use it. Because OBEs are challenging for many people. It takes effort. It took me 24 days to initiate my first experience. I'm not Bob. Bob Monroe was spontaneous. He'd be popping out of his body left and right, for any of you guys who read his stuff. But he's not the norm. Most of us have to work at it. We have to learn the techniques. We have to learn how to prepare ourselves. We have to learn to prepare our states of consciousness for this new kind of exploration. We have to reduce our fear levels. We have to reduce our blocks. We have to reduce our physical self-concept. We have blocks that most people are dealing with that really inhibits the process of fully conscious out-of-body experiences. The two biggest blocks are subconscious fears. A lot of it comes from our childhood and a lot of our bogus religious beliefs. And also the self-concept that we have ingrained in us through our society and culture. We have been conditioned to believe that we're a hunk of flesh, haven't we? We have literally been programmed to believe that you are a physical man or a physical woman, and nothing could be further from the truth. Yes, you're using a biological body now for a very short period of time to gain experience, but that is certainly not you. That is strictly just a vehicle. This is why the Buddhists take young boys and separate them from their parents at a young age before they're programmed and turn them into monks. They want to get them before they're totally conditioned into society. Same concept. We have to reprogram ourselves into a whole new way of looking at ourselves in the universe to ever become an effective explorer of consciousness. Because as long as you believe that you're a biological being, you are dragging a huge anchor. Because how can you explore these other states of consciousness as long as you believe that you're a biological being? The two you're just always at war. So we have to reprogram ourselves, which of course is one of the things I do in my workshops. I try to condition. I go through hypnosis and other things to help to condition people to begin to reprogram about what we truly are, which is unlimited beings of pure consciousness with unlimited capabilities, and we're all immortal. There's no death. That I know. No one has ever died. Isn't it wild? World War II, no one really died. It's kind of a wild thought. I've met, through my out-of-body experiences, many, many, many hundreds of people that existed through World War II. I was a German soldier during World War II and was killed on the Russian front. And I met hundreds of these people. They're all fine. No one ever died. It's crazy. It's like the biggest illusion that we're in that this is the big deal here. The physical world is such a sliver of reality. If I only could get that across, how tiny this is. You know, people talk about these levels of reality, but they don't put it in perspective. What commonly is called the astral, you know, the astral is 1,000 times bigger than the physical universe, to put it in perspective. 1,000 times bigger, more expansive. And it's expanding constantly because thought creates reality. It's amazing. So when science tries to get to these great conclusions based on their perceptions, it's like you got to smile, because They see this tiny sliver of reality, and then they come to these grandiose decisions about reality, like the Big Bang. Oh my God. Nothing could be further than the truth. The universe is not, the universe was created, I find, it's expanding now because of thought. The inner dimensions are expanding the physical world, because the physical world is like the outer, it's like a balloon expanding, and the physical universe is that balloon, skin of the balloon. The inner part of the balloon, which is of course 1,000,000 times bigger, that is a world of thought and energy. And that thought is expanding because consciousness is always expanding. Okay, I want to cover some of these other topics. And by the way, the questions were very good. I found them quite interesting. Okay, individual differences. Why do people perceive these realities differently? And this is one thing I hope I can make this as clear as possible. The universe, when you have an out-of-body experience, you're not entering a stagnant, structured, form-based, well, it is form-based, but it's not some kind of stagnant reality like the physical world that's unchanging. We have a model. Our own model of physical reality is that things should be stable, right? What is reality to us? Oh, it has to be physical. It has to be three-dimensional and not change. But the problem with that entire model of reality is that the rest of the universe doesn't operate by those rules. The universe, the rest of the universe, which of course is 99.999% of the universe, operates on a whole nother, completely different rules of the road. And that is that thought creates reality. And thought is molded by collective groups of individuals. I talk about this in my books extensively because I've explored many of these realities. Robert Monroe used to call these realities belief systems. I call them consensus realities. People, after death, join together and they, through collectives of, let's just say they are of like mind and beliefs, they will join together to create realities that are in sync with their personal beliefs and their, let's just say, state of consciousness. And to them, that is their reality. Remember, and I didn't make this maybe as clear as I should, as we move inward into these states, the universe becomes progressively more thought responsive. And this is very important. The physical world, by the way, is thought responsive because everything here is crystallized thought. It just takes longer to manifest. But as we go inward and have an OBE, we are entering realities that are become progressively more sensitive and responsive to focused thought. In other words, we have the ability to create our reality with focused thought when we leave our bodies, especially when we move beyond what I call the parallel world. This is what happens in the afterlife for people. Millions, billions of people have created these realities. Many of them are millions of years old, by the way. And many of them are, by the way, are magnificent. There are millions of consensus realities that exist. And they are all created by the state of consciousness and the beliefs of the inhabitants. And each one of these consensus realities, some of them are cloistered. Some of these people live in like a walled city is common, or they're surrounded by rivers. I've encountered all kinds of obstacles. Some of these, in other words, they are cloistered in a way into realities only for a certain state of consciousness, because that's what resonates with the collective. My point is that we are not entering into necessarily what people perceive as some kind of fixed reality as we feel it should be in the physical world. The greatest mistake, I think, made by science is the concept that things have to be three-dimensional and form-based to be real. Especially when you consider that that is actually the least real. There are realities that exist beyond the physical that have existed and can exist for millions, beyond years. Years don't even exist. Beyond what we would conceive of time. In other words, as long as the group holds their consensus thoughts of what that reality should look like, they can maintain it indefinitely. My point is, when we have an out-of-body experience, we are, in a sense, co-creators of the reality that is around us. It's not stagnant. This is one of the reasons why when people have out-of-body experiences, they all perceive things differently. Because we are interacting with our environment. It's not stagnant. We are co-creators of that environment. For instance, someone fear-based is going to create a fearful experience. Someone who is more spiritual, let's just say more spiritual-minded, will have a more spiritual experience. And I can give you examples. I write about this extensively. Matter of fact, in Secret of the Soul, I provide an entire chart about this and how it manifests. The reason why it is difficult for observers, and I cut to the chase here a little bit, because I know a lot of people always ask, well, why can't people prove this through, and let's just say, why can't somebody easily examine a 4-digit number hidden around the world in some location? There's a lot of reasons why that's very difficult for people that have OBEs. Number one is that as you have an out-of-body experience, you move inward. The parallel world, I call it the parallel world, is a very thin world existing. It's like the substructure of matter. And that only can be examined if you can maintain your vibrational rate near the physical world. Unfortunately, most people, when you begin to have out-of-body experiences, you automatically will begin to experience the state of consciousness and the interdimensional reality that is in sync with your state, your personal state of consciousness. So we have a tendency to go inward. To give you an example, for the first 5 years of my out-of-body experiences, I explored what I thought was the physical world, until I finally realized that I wasn't observing the physical world. I was observing an energy replica, a substructure energetic replica, which was the substructure of the physical world. That's why there was a lot of differences, subtle differences. In other words, when I started to have out-of-body experiences, I noticed that there was parts of my physical surroundings were different. It took me a long time to start to begin to get a handle on this. I went around and tried to touch objects. I write about it, trying to put out candles. I did my own little explorations and tried to prove it to myself, tried to interact with matter, which was when I tried to interact with matter, I'd snap back to my body instantly. The thing is, I realized after a few years that I wasn't interacting. I wasn't even observing the physical world, as many people believe. I was actually entered an entirely different dimensional reality. That was very similar to matter because it was like the energetic substructure. The universe is made up of a series of energetic dimensions, each built upon the next. It's a very organized way. It's not Big Bang. It's a very organized and structured creation. that I explored for 40 years now. So my point is, it's difficult because we have a tendency in our OBEs to go into, let's just say, what people call today the astral world, or the higher or finer levels or dimensional realities. To give you an example of how this occurs, in the last 10 to 12 years of my out-of-body experiences, I have not seen the physical world at all. I did in the first 5 years, but I have not seen the physical world in at least 10 years now. Because you go to the energy body that resonates with you. And it's an inward journey. It's a shift of consciousness inward. And it goes, so you end up going beyond the physical very quickly, especially if you're not interested in the physical and you want to obtain answers which are inward. My point is, it's very difficult to maintain your state of consciousness and focus on what people perceive as the physical world, because you're drawn inward. Also, we're interacting with the reality around us. And often people get diverted because they have contact with other beings happens. There's a lot of things going on. The universe is a very crowded place. And people get, let's just say, people will contact you. And they're all people. There's no ghosts. Everybody's just vibrating at a different level. And by the way, another thing I like to get across, when I talk about this dimensional model, I want to emphasize it's all here, it's all now. There's no up, there's no down. Everything is here, everything is now. It's a matter of vibrational frequency and density. That makes a difference. It has nothing to do with space and time, as so many people like to talk about. Those, matter of fact, space and time are meaningless concepts because time doesn't exist because we're immortal. Anyway, I just want to pull that together with my conceptual model that I was trying to put out there. Okay, another question I like to address is, and this I find interesting just the way the question was worded, bodily sensations. I found this interesting. As any of you have read any of my works, I talk about the vibrational state extensively. I have a survey of 16,000 people have responded. I get a lot of feedback because my books are in 12 languages. So I was fortunate enough to get tremendous feedback from all over the world. And the question blows my mind sometimes. We're so obsessed with matter that we think it is bodily sensations. When we enter into an altered state of consciousness, which is the precursor for an out-of-body experience, we are beginning to slow down, we're beginning to go into our heartbeat slows, there's techniques we do to enter into this state. There is a natural precursor that, based on my research, approximately 70 to 75% of people will experience. And I call it, and the term is now widely out there, it's a vibrational state. These are energetic events that occur inwardly within us as we make this transfer or transition of consciousness from the outer physical body to our less dense energy body. There's a shift of consciousness that occurs during the OBE. In other words, you're letting go a little bit of the physical body. You're transferring your consciousness or a portion of it to your non-physical body. During this process, there are energetic events that are occurring. They're not physical events. I like to emphasize. They feel physical. You'll swear they're physical, but they're not. A typical one, buzzing, humming, roaring sounds. Anyone can check my books. I think 80% of people experience this. Paralysis, very common. About 50%, 52% from memory experience some form of partial or full sleep paralysis. Why? Because you have to let go of the physical body to transfer your awareness to the non-physical. You can't hold on to both and have an out-of-body experience, can you? You have to eventually let go. So, sleep paralysis is part of that. You're letting go of the physical body. It's a natural state. I find it enjoyable, by the way. All these things I find incredibly enjoyable. Some people find them terrifying. I find them fun. There's many of these. Feeling a sense of heaviness, feeling presence of someone touching you. Heavy vibrations, which of course is the most famous, which is why it's called the vibrational state. I write about this, it sounds like you're in, for me, I write early on in the 70s, for me it was like like I was in a jet engine. Now, as I progressed over the decades, all of these sensations have diminished. And now they're very slight for me. But some of you a lot of you are probably already experiencing these sensations. All of these sensations are the natural precursor to a normal out-of-body experience, because we have to begin to transfer our consciousness. During this transfer, or shift is a better word for it, because your consciousness is already there. You're during this shift, you're going through an energetic event, because OBEs are a highly energetic event. And during this process, that's when all of these, let's just say, phenomena occur that so many people, by the way, some people are very afraid of. After separation, all of these energetic events will come to an end immediately, and things become very quiet and serene, I can assure you. It's just that moment of transition where this energy event occurs. I mean, who's experienced this? Just if you would raise your hand. Who's experienced any of these things? Okay. These things are normal. They're all part of our natural process of going inward, because we have to let go. And I don't want to go into all the details because it would be a lengthy process just to explain all this. But I want you to be aware that this is normal part of this process of having out-of-body experiences. And it's quite enjoyable once you surrender to it. The key is to be knowledgeable and surrender to the event, and then focus your attention away from your body. There's a lot of misinformation about out-of-body experiences out there. And one of the main ones is this idea is that you linger in this state. You do not. You have to initiate. There's a common, let's just say, tale out there that's totally inaccurate, is that we will automatically separate from our bodies and just float like Tinkerbell or something. It's silly and childish. Most people need to self-initiate separation. And that's the facts. I know that from surveys I've done. Now, there are a percentage of approximately 35% of people will just suddenly, spontaneously find themselves separated from their body. But the majority will linger, or they will experience the vibrational state or something akin to it, and then they will linger in that state. And what often happens is it scares people because they don't know what's happening. You feel like you're out of control. It's because of lack of knowledge about the entire event. One of the main things that I teach is that we have to self-initiate separation, and we do that very easily by focusing our attention away from our body through a target like door now. You focus your attention to a target separated from yourself, and that will help to create separation. The question that I was given is there a separation? And yes, During a classic out-of-body experience, yes, there is separation of consciousness. And I have a much broader model of this than that, because I also know that we can have out-of-body experiences and not leave the body. And this is exactly what yogis do when they travel inward within themselves. And they have they enter these transcendental states of consciousness. They're essentially having an out-of-body experiences within themselves. I have done this myself, so I know and I do it a lot, especially in the last 10 years. My point is, in the classic OBE, or out-of-body experience, most people will experience some form of separation. And this is, for many people, important because it helps to verify that this state is real for them. It gives you that knock on the head, like, oh yeah, I'm here. I'm in a different viewpoint than I was before. And this helps people to verify their experiences, which at the beginning stages are very, very important. Okay, benefits. I think the benefits of out-of-body exploration are tremendous. I write about 27 of them in my books. Most importantly, the benefits are self-knowledge. How do we ever obtain the answers unless we become explorers of consciousness? Think about it. Like I said, you're not going to find the answers reading intellectual material, because the answers lie beyond the mind. And as long as you're absorbing someone else's theories, you're just a result of someone else's theories and speculation. I feel strongly that each of us are given the ability to become inner explorers of consciousness, because that's what we are. Think about it for a moment. We have extended our conscious awareness through multiple dimensions of the universe to actually enter and experience a physical body right now. You are a courageous explorer right now. You are a multi-dimensional explorer of consciousness right now. And you have extended your conscious awareness throughout the entire length and breadth of the universe through multiple fine vibratory dimensional realities. Call it whatever labels you want. You could call it, people have these labels they love to put on: spiritual, subconscious, and conscious, then emotional, then etheric, and all. It doesn't matter the labels you give it. You have right now extended your consciousness all the way into the outermost region of the universe, which is matter. Right now, all of us, all 7 billion of us, are experiencing this form of training. We're stretching our consciousness through multiple dimensions. And very few people are even aware of it. It's all part of the training program that we're all part of by just being in a physical body and being human right now. And the process of obtaining the answers, we just reverse the process. We have to begin to learn to explore inwardly back to the source and to where the answers lie, because the answers lie beyond the mind, because that's what the source lies beyond the mind. And that's why it's so important. Out-of-body exploration is not about just flitting around and looking at your girlfriend, and I get thousands of letters from people, and I always laugh at what people are doing. That's not the core reason for it. It's about exploring beyond form-based reality and moving inward so we can truly obtain the answers to what we are ourselves. And this is a powerful, effective way to do it if you're willing to take the time, the effort, and the commitment to explore inward. And I also feel it's essential. By the way, the model of consciousness I talked about, the same applies to near-death experiences. A near-death experience is just the transfer of awareness inward to a person, generally to a person's astral body. Not to their soul, it's generally to their astral body. That's why they're meeting with loved ones in a lot of near-death experiences. That's why there's a tunnel. The tunnel represents an interdimensional opening of consciousness. Remember, our mind is interpreting these events. All of the phenomena associated with a near-death event falls in directly into my model that I discussed earlier, this multidimensional model. And people, the tunnel represents the opening, which, by the way, you experience sometimes during OBEs, though not often, but some people do. It represents an interdimensional opening to another reality. And within that reality, which is often described as light-filled, because it's a higher vibratory level of reality, and people meet their loved ones, because their loved ones are readily available when you go to them and meet them on their terms. My point is that the same applies. And the same applies to death. Death is nothing more, the term is, there's no death, of course. Death itself is the same thing. We just let go of the physical body. It's essentially an OBE with no return. It's really, truly what it is. You're let go of the physical body, and you enter this other dimensional reality. And often people are met by loved ones in the consensus reality, by the way, that resonates with their own state of consciousness, which I call consensus realities. But we have the ability to go far beyond that if we choose to. What are the potential benefits? One of the questions. The potential benefits is all about self-empowerment. I feel self-knowledge. We will only, and I think everybody would agree with this. We're here, aren't we here for experience? We're here in a body, we're having gut-wrenching experiences most of the time. A lot of us are having, the physical world's a tough place, isn't it? This is a rough one. There's a lot of souls don't even come here, by the way. I've met them. They choose not to, it's too crazy. I've had them tell me this. No way, I'm not going there, that's crazy. I'm serious. Everybody thinks everybody incarnates. No, they don't. Not in the physical world. There's no gun to our head. It's by choice we come here. And a lot of people they choose whether they're smart or whatever, I don't know, but they choose not to come here. My point is that we obtain knowledge through our own experiences. And the same applies with obtaining the answers. We have to expand our ability through our own efforts to obtain the answers for ourselves. In my workshops, and anyone who's ever attended one will tell you, I don't ever say that I know the answers. I just try to teach people how they can obtain the answers through their own efforts, because no one can give you the answers, me or anyone else. But we have the ability to empower ourselves through our own experiences by expanding our ability to perceive and explore beyond this single reality to obtain the deeper answers to reality and why we're here. In other words, the four big questions I talked about at the beginning. Why we are here, where we're going, what's our purpose? And out-of-body exploration can give us that ability. Also, I feel strongly, and this is on another note, I feel strongly that this is also what true evolution is. Evolution is not about biological changes. Evolution is the evolution of consciousness. And consciousness evolves through experience. And we can accelerate our personal evolution of consciousness by exploring beyond the body, because you begin to connect with the true nature of what you are. You break loose from the old indoctrinations. There's 7 billion people on the planet, and most of them are like robots. They're totally indoctrinated, totally programmed to believe a very narrow vision of themselves and reality. Most people think they're just a biological meat bag. I mean, seriously, don't they? They believe that a 3-pound mass is created on electrical things are creating consciousness. I mean, even though one out-of-body experience will prove to you that all that is totally false. The point is, we have to obtain the answers for ourselves. We have to learn to empower ourselves. And this is one way for people to do it. But it takes commitment, it takes effort, it takes dedication. And to put it a stronger note, I strongly feel that out-of-body exploration is a direct path to accelerating our own personal evolution, because we begin to connect with and begin to truly know, understand, and operate our multidimensional self. Because every dimensional reality has its own rules. And we have to learn those rules through our own experiences. Because the physical rules mean nothing once you leave your body. Okay, in summation, I guess, I would say that, you know, the out-of-body exploration, it takes a certain courageousness, I think, on some level, and I'll be the first to admit that. You have to have a little bit of an adventurer in you. Every time you have an out-of-body experience, I feel like Christopher Columbus. I really do. I don't know how else to say it. That's what I feel like. You know, you feel like Neil Armstrong. You feel like, oh, I mean, it's exciting. It's exciting, but it takes a certain person to be able to cut through all the baloney that's out there. You have to let go of a lot of the beliefs. You know, the first thing I say in my workshop at the intro is that I have no beliefs. One of the most shocking things I learned in my 41 years of out-of-body exploration is this. I have not found one belief system in the physical world that's accurate. Not one. Not a single one is accurate. They're all flawed. Every single one. I don't care whether it's religious and or scientific or New Age. They're all flawed. It's up to us to go out there, or in there, I should say, within ourselves, and begin to explore this on our own. Because that's the only way we're going to ever know the answers. Otherwise, we're like, you know, we're like people who are like mice on a treadmill. Always searching for that, you know, nugget. When it's going nowhere. Because if either it's so essential for us to become multidimensional consciously. And the first thing we have to do is learn about it, then find a technique that works. And I haven't even went into that, like the target technique I talked about earlier. Find a technique that resonates with you. Do it every day for 60 days. That's the most important thing. Every day for 60 days, do an out-of-body technique. It only takes 10 minutes. Don't do it in your bed. The bed is the worst place. Create a designated area. In your bed, you're programmed to sleep soundly. Do it in your sofa. 95% of all my out-of-body experiences have been on my sofa. And that's my designated area. My point is that find out the techniques that work, that you feel that resonate with you, and then stick with it for 60 days. And then you judge the results. Don't base anything on what I just said, because that's meaningless. The only thing that matters is your personal experience with it. But give it the shot, just like I did. It took me 24 days, and I was in a dorm room, for God's sake, and it's the worst place on earth looking back. If I can do it in a dorm room, for God's sake, you can do it in your own home. Anyway, as summation, The key is daily practice. It comes down to daily practice. There's no theories. There's only one rule. Never think about your body. That's the only rule I ever put out there. But it's all about personal experience, and then allow yourself to decide what's real for you. Anyway, I'm ready for questions if you are, Bob.
Okay, yes. Thank you, William, for that very moving and insightful presentation.
Hi, thank you for that talk. Okay, insofar as we believe we're in this physical reality and we are trapped here, and you said that there are these other consensus realities, I was just curious, in these other consensus realities that you say some people have been in for millions of years or beyond time, are the people there by choice, or are they also trapped in those realities?
That's an interesting question. They're there by choice, but often the choice, and I write about this extensively in my new book, by the way, they're there by choice because they don't know any better. I don't know how else to say this, but the ignorant do not become enlightened just because they're dead. I don't know how else to put it. You take your state of consciousness with you at death, and you experience the consensus reality that resonates with your state of consciousness, and you're surrounded by those generally of like mind. So keep in mind that because of this, it's a self-perpetuating system in a way, that people surround themselves with those that are continuing to pursue the same belief systems they always have. Just like think about it, it's not that different from the physical world, is it? In other words, to be more specific, yes, they always have an opportunity to move. People always have the capability to go beyond their consensus reality, but very few do because they're unaware that they have that ability. It's sad but true that I've observed this many, many times, and it's shocking to observe. And I write about this I go into quite detail in my new book about this, because I found it shocking. And because you would think that people would have total freedom to go anywhere and do anything, wouldn't you? But it's not the case. A classic example is most people can't fly. But yet I can fly when I'm out of body with no problem. So can you if you just choose to. But they don't conceive of themselves that capable of doing that. So they can't. They can't walk through walls because they can't conceive of themselves having that capability. You take your limitations with you. You take your prejudices with you. You take your fears with you. You don't, that's what I mean by you take your stuff with you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
So you've spoken about the self-initiated out-of-the-body experiences as an ability to be acquired, not something necessarily that corresponds to spiritual evolution or requires permission from a higher self or a password or security clearance. But yet all these things seem involved. You've touched on it peripherally. Maybe you could speak about that.
I feel, based on my experience, that based on our current level of, let's just say, evolution, in our current state, most people, they will need to self-initiate the experience in order to have the experience, because they're so locked in because of the fears and limits that are programmed since our childhood. Remember, we're the result of our beliefs, aren't we? We're the result of look at all of the religious beliefs that were programmed into all of us when we were young. Look at all the fears. Look at all the limits that were programmed into us. That's why many people, there are people that have spontaneous experiences. There's millions of them. I want to make that clear. There's more spontaneous experiences than self-initiated. The problem is that most people don't understand even what the experience is. So they can't utilize it properly, like in the way to become effective explorers of consciousness, because they don't even know what's happening. I know that from getting thousands of letters from people who I have received, my God, hundreds of letters of parents that are taking their kids to a shrink because they're having the vibrational state and this, what they call out-of-body experience. And they're giving them drugs to stop it. I'm being dead serious here. It's sad because it's a threat to their perception of reality. They don't want their child having these out-of-body experiences. So what do they give them? First thing you wouldn't believe the number of letters I get. The point is that our society has programmed so the vast majority of us to be locked in our bodies because that's the norm. And we have to relearn our capabilities to break free, I feel, to be blunt about it. Does that answer your question?
Well, my experience was I'd fasted once for 25 days, and at this point I had an out-of-the-body experience, but at that moment, very same moment, my wife kicked me and blocked it, and I was immediately returned to the body, and I thought, well, it's not supposed to happen. The higher self or whatever interaction, I mean, who's in charge here? Didn't allow it to happen for some reason. And I had several other experiences in which it was blocked in a similar manner by signaling the external forces.
Everybody's different. I would say it's up to you to decide whether that was a block or whether that was just another challenge you had to overcome. You know, some people try to have these experiences for years. I mean, everybody is totally different. So I can't say for sure that if how you were going to, that's an individual choice. If you feel that that's not right for you, then don't pursue it. That's all I could say. But I would say that it's more of a matter of persistence than anything else. Because that's what it was for the many people that I know. Many people, these experiences involve a lot of, I didn't go into all the challenges that people confront because I don't have time to deal with that now. But people go through series of challenges, just like they do in meditation, just like they do in yoga. And there's things you have to deal with, energetic things, all kinds of events that can occur. So I would say that's a personal decision whether you decide whether that was some kind of message or whether you could just work through it. Okay, thanks.
Bill, it's nice to see you again. My name is Todd Ronan. I took one of your classes back at the Michigan Metaphysical Society in Royal Oak a long, long time ago.
Wow, that was what?
20 years ago.
That's been a long time ago.
Yeah, I had one at your seminar too. So everyone that should take Bill's seminar, and I guarantee you'll have an out-of-body experience.
By the way, I do not guarantee that.
Or Todd will pay for your.
No.
Where do I send a check?
So it's great to see you again. You talked a little bit in the beginning about parallel worlds, and I wanted to just ask you if you thought that there were parallel Earths with people that were identical to us living there, or that the deeper we go, the just deeper we get into the multidimensional universe?
I feel that the deeper we go into us. And yes, the parallel world is a parallel world where we will see parallels, energetically parallels of other people. And I think that is what has confused a lot of people about this whole concept of the parallel Earth. I feel it's a misnomer because it's difficult to describe this, but it's no more than an energy. It's like the negative of the positive on a picture. I mean, it's just an energetic duplicate that we use. It's part of what we are. It's not existing as we would perceive it totally independently, because they're interlaced, because they're all operating in sync with one another. So am I making this clear? I feel it's all interrelated.
I think you're saying no.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Good seeing you again.
Hi, William.
Hi.
I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Tom Campbell when he was here doing the same thing. I'm curious about your sleep at night. When you go to sleep at night, how many hours do you sleep, and are you lucid dreaming, or are you just letting yourself be? What are you doing at nighttime, or when you sleep?
Typically, I do a lot of dreaming, and I do a lot of lucid dreaming, and occasionally I have OBEs, but it's mostly like most of us. I would say the majority of the time I'm unconscious, just like most people. It's a recharging. I feel sleep is a recharging. I didn't go into this earlier, but I've observed this, that when people sleep, they actually separate slightly from their physical body. I've observed this in my wife and others. I've actually observed this also in pets. Pets, by the way, animals have out-of-body experiences too. I didn't touch on that. I've had pets follow me in out-of-body experiences, so I know this for a fact. It sounds bizarre, but it's true. They will follow you. And what happens during sleep, we move out of sync with our body, just out of phase. I'm not talking about we're floating up at the ceiling. We're maybe, just a fraction out of phase, and our energy body is recharging. And during that period, myself and I think most people are just unconscious. Anyway, so I don't think I'm that much different than anyone else in that regard. Most of my out-of-body experiences actually occur on my sofa in the middle of the day.
Thanks. I just want to tell you real quick, I have an astral projection group here in Austin, and tomorrow night we're using your Waves of Light meditation.
Oh, excellent.
So,
Use
thank you.
headphones.
Oh, yeah. We all got our noise canceling and good stuff like that.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
Leanne, question.
Hi, William.
Hi.
I kind of have a two-part question, and this kind of goes back to way long time ago when I first started having spontaneous OBEs, and I used to have lots and lots of lucid dreams, very active dream life. Could go in and out of my dreams, wake up. So the first part is, you mentioned during the path, I believe, and then again tonight, about the very first time you had an out-of-body experience. Your walls started melting, and then you saw this man with a long beard and a long robe. And one of the experiences that I had when I was young, for many years, I had a hard time falling asleep at night, and what I would end up seeing that would help me go to sleep was always the image of this man with a long beard and a long cloak. And when I couldn't go to sleep, I would just kind of summon him, and it was always the same. And I don't know where he came from. It just was this image that I had, and he was very clear, and he would come, and then he'd kind of take me off to the dream world. So that's my first question. Is this like an archetypal image? Have other people experienced that same type of persona?
I don't think my experience was archetypal, because I've met this individual on other occasions. By the way, my person doesn't have a long beard. It's actually a short beard, but not that that's a big deal, but it takes it's not like this guy looks like a wizard or something. It's not the look.
Mine actually did look like a wizard, because I called him Wise Wizard.
Oh, well, see, mine did not. For me, it was I feel this was a personal guide of mine. Other people have experienced, just so you know, other people have experienced other guides. Often there's children, by the way, because children are non-threatening to people. I get a lot of feedback of that. To a woman, a man in the bedroom could be very threatening, obviously, where a child standing there would suddenly be non-threatening. Guides have an effective guide has the ability to actually alter their external form. I found, to be more effective in the situation they may be. Because, form is just the outer vehicle of consciousness. But no, I think it can be archetypal, and only because of something like Lord of the Rings has made, the Gandalf the Grey and Gandalf the White now have become archetypal forms in our society. So I think it is now archetypal more than ever, but in my case, I don't believe it was. But I think it can be. And as long as it worked for you, that's all that mattered.
Yeah, and mine was well before any kind of Hollywood imagery or anything like that, and I never read Lord of the Rings, and so I don't know where the image came from, but well, that answers that question. He was kind of a guide. So the other part then is the other thing. I started having all these spontaneous OBEs where I'd have the paralysis state, and for me, I'd always have something, the recurring thing. There would be something that would come up on my bed and kind of crawl along the bed. And as I got older, into my 20s, this thing, which changed over the years because it didn't feel threatening when I was younger, but then it became this very big, visible, large humanoid thing with a dark cloak, very frightening, terrifying. Anyway, so I actually was afraid to go to sleep at night because I was having this happen every night. And then finally, I had no idea what was going on. Finally, somebody told me it was the beginning stages of an out-of-body experience, which then gave me the opportunity to start studying about it. But and I've heard mixed responses about when you have these kind of negative energies that come in, that it could be a projection of what's going on in your own life or whatever. I just wanted to know what your take is on that.
It's definitely a signal that you're ready to go out of body. You're framing it by saying it's negative. Remember, we have a tendency to sometimes jump to conclusions about this. And I know what you mean. I get a lot of responses from people. It's difficult not to frame your experience. There's different responses. The more enlightened response, if you're already in paralysis and you can see through closed eyelids, you're already out of body. This is just one way to avoid the situation and not shut down, is to just create a very strong affirmation of next level now and move beyond that reality. Next level now will take you instantly, if you do it with a total intention focus, it will take you right out of that situation and you will go to another level of reality. If it's a fearful thing, of course, you can always surround yourself with light and play that. I like personally the idea of using these experiences to leap beyond the body instead of trying to shut down. That's why I would suggest going next level now, next time it happens. And then you'll see that's gone. It's just gone. But if that doesn't work, the other, of course, is the old-fashioned approach, is to just surround yourself with light if you feel that that's somehow threatening. But next time it happens, try the next level now and see what happens.
Yeah, I haven't had it happen since I was in my 20s, so it's been a very long time. And now I'm doing more of an exploration where I have more focused intention, but I haven't had any of the negative stuff.
Well, that's good.
Okay.
That's good.
But thank you. I was just curious as to what the thing was.
Oliver, next question.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you for this very lucid evening. Among other things, you've really set me free about, I've had a variety of visioning experiences I never thought to call out-of-the-body experiences. So really opened up a whole thing. My major question, though, comes off of what you just said about this bearded character thing. You're not an archetypal being because you've met him or her, him, yes, the beard, several places. And the question is about the assessment of reality of different kinds of images that one has in thoughts, in dreams, in lucid dreams, in instructed dreams, and dreams where you meet characters that clearly are their own character. They're not just like an appearance. What is your thinking about all of those?
You mean dream characters?
Of how do you how do you assess different reality status to different types of entities that occur in different states of consciousness?
Oh, okay. I challenge. I've kind of trained myself to challenge and ask. I think we overlook one of the most powerful. We only have one thing that we take with us in all of our altered states, and sometimes we forget this. We only own one thing or possess one thing. And that is our state of consciousness. And that's the only thing we can control in the universe is our state of consciousness. Because we have no possessions, we have no body. So it's all about state of consciousness. So I simply ask, I have trained myself to always ask, what do you represent? If I have somebody confront me, or approach me, I should say, in an altered state, it doesn't matter if it's a lucid dream. Now, it depends on the degree of control you have. In lucid dreams, you often don't have the same level of control you have in an OBE, of course. But if I'm in an OBE and somebody, let's say, approaches me and I don't know who they are, you'll get a feel for it energetically. If you don't, I say, what do you represent? Or simply, who are you? But I use, what do you represent? Because I want to know if it's a facade. Is it an energetic projection? Or are they really who they appear to be? Because remember, people can change. Let's say energetically, many millions of people have the ability to change form. And we have to determine that reality all the time. It's a common issue. So I always confront and ask questions. That's how I determine it.
Sure, and that can even work well for a dream image. What do you represent?
Yes, what do you represent?
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, just a kind of a quick tangent on what Juice was talking about earlier, where you were saying that you feel like sleep is really kind of a recharge state. So do you feel that like lucid dreaming is a drain on your energy, or what kind of things do you do to build energy? What things detract from that?
Oh, I think it's an energetic event. I don't think it's either. I think the very process of being in that state is a recharging state. That's how I look at it. Sleep itself is I consider sleep a recharging state. So whether we're consciously aware of it or not, we're still recharging. So I think it's neutral to that. I don't look at it as necessarily a drain at all.
Hi, William. My name is Robert. First of all, thank you so much for spending time with us tonight and sharing so freely of your experiences and what you've learned. I know we all really appreciate it. I'm about the same age as you. I had I guess my transcendental experience in 1973. And like you said, there wasn't a lot that I found back then to read or figure out what was going on. And I grew up in a religious background, but I started doing comparative religious studies. And it seemed like to me that, Jesus or Muhammad or Buddha or Lao Tzu or Guru Nanak or the mystics or the yogis, they're basically just kind of describing these experiences. Of course, everybody's experience is different. And I was just wondering if that was, is that what you feel like also? Or
Absolutely. That's exactly what I feel. I write about this in Secret of the Soul. Islam is based on an out-of-body experience. Muhammad's night journey is clearly an out-of-body experience, where he describes going through 7 dimensions of reality, riding this mystical horse based on it's a cultural interpretation, of course, or it wasn't a horse, it was an animal. But the point is, if you go back and this is a big subject, but I write about this extensively. What is a mystical experience but an out-of-body experience? You're extending your awareness beyond your physical limits, and you're beginning to access other dimensional realities, which now, of course, religions call heaven. But look at Revelations begins with, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. What does I was in the spirit mean? When considering it was written 2,000 years ago, what would that mean today? I was having an out-of-body experience on the Lord's Day. Or St. John talking about whether in the body or out of the body, I know not. I mean, the Bible, the Quran, every religious text, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, you name it, they are full of out-of-body experiences. Because an out-of-body experience is just the projection or awareness beyond the body. For God's sake, all of these mystical experiences are out-of-body experiences. It's just been framed according to the religious and cultural lingo of the day. And unfortunately, religions were built, all this dogma and stuff got built around it, unfortunately. It's a darn shame. And what's even worse is that then people were told where only special people have these experiences. Only prophets have these experiences. Nothing could be further from the truth. Everybody has these experiences. But that's why people, I think, need to know about this, so they can connect the dots and realize that there's a rich cultural heritage that involves all of us and our beliefs. I mean, this is something that's been going in through human civilization since the beginning of time. But people just haven't connected the dots. But now we can. It's exciting time, I think, now.
I think so too. Thanks again so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Hi. When you first started doing this, how hard was it for you to do it your first time? And how do you use this to better your life?
Okay, how hard was it? It took a lot of effort. It took 24 days of effort for me to have my first experience. So yes, it took some dedication, it took some effort, and it took daily effort, not just some hit and miss, I think I'm going to do this. I really focused on it for that period of time. So yes, it took time, it took dedication, and it took effort. And changes, oh my God, I can only imagine. I think it opened up a whole new world of opportunity, of ability, of experiences, of knowledge, of wisdom, I think it opened up a whole new world, at least for me it has, beyond anything I can even begin to express, because it gives us the opportunity to even connect with our higher self. I mean, it goes beyond just astral plane experiences. So I think it opened up the universe. That's how I look at it.
Thank you so much for teaching us from your experience, and especially for the question about religious texts and our ability to adhere to a heaven now ability. My question is regarding a friend of mine whom I met at a Science and Consciousness conference. She had multiple personalities, and she would snap in and out of awareness on this physical plane, and she reported to me that she knew me not only on Earth here, but also in other dimension, and would come back with stories. She had a Toltec teacher, and she spoke of a term, which is my question. She said the term oversoul, which I wondered, is that some sort of fractal personality of people that live on this planet and share a soul?
No.
Or have you heard of this term before?
Yes, it's a common term. It refers to an aspect of our higher self. In other words, that the oversoul concept has been established. Jane Roberts, of course, writes about this, and others have written about it. It's kind of a broad concept. We're not physical beings. And as these incredibly creative, non-physical beings, we have the ability to extend different beings. In other words, one oversoul can have more than one physical body operating at the same time, to double or even triple their ability to obtain knowledge and information. Because the theory is that soul is that powerful, that creative. In other words, if we can operate one physical body, why can't we operate two? And if we can operate two, why can't we operate two physical bodies and two astral bodies and two mental bodies all at the same time? If this oversoul has unlimited capabilities, that is the concept behind the oversoul. I don't go into it often because it's hard for us to relate to such a thing, but many people find it to be an acceptable theory of consciousness, that we are that powerful, that we have the ability to operate multiple energy bodies. And the oversoul is really the powerful source of that capability, let's say.
Thank you. I have one last part. If to someone who is not familiar with your works, which book would you suggest to read first?
Adventures Beyond the Body.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll just ask a real basic question, and that is, do you have any sort of techniques to get rid of the mind chatter that when you're trying to meditate or whatever, or go into the OBE type experiences?
That's a good question. Affirmation. I feel strongly that a mantra, take an affirmation and use it as a mantra. One affirmation can be like, now I'm out of body. In other words, select an affirmation and then repeat it as a mantra and hold it as your last conscious thought. That is an effective, a matter of fact, that in and of itself is an effective OBE technique. It's called the affirmation technique. In other words, you repeat, you saturate your mind with your affirmation so the monkey mind can't kick in. The yogis throughout history have done the same thing with sounds. That's the same concept behind chanting Om, chanting Hu, or any of the chants that are done in the East. It's the same philosophy. You keep your mind occupied on a sound or on a thought. It helps to, let's just say, hold the monkey mind at bay. And that's probably one of the best ways to do it. And you just hold it until you just continue to hold it as your last conscious thought as you're drifting off. That's the key. You hold your affirmation as your last conscious thought.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, last question.
In your explorations, what have you learned about who you are, what you are, and where you're from?
Wow, that's I have 3 books. Yeah, you ask easy questions, huh? That is a huge question. I feel that, number one, I know I'm immortal. I know I've been here many, many times before. I know I have unlimited creative abilities. But that's essentially why I did write 3 books, is to address some of those really deep questions. And I know that I have the unlimited ability to create not only my reality, but my entire surroundings on every level, no matter where I am, no matter what level of reality I am. And that I'm the one, I'm empowered to manifest the reality that I choose. And I refuse to be the result of others in consensus realities. I refuse to accept the limitations of others because I know that I can create my own reality. That's the kind of things that I know. I know that I have no limitations. I know that I don't usually use the word spiritual, but I don't know what else to call it, that I'm part of something that's immensely creative and powerful without limit.
Well, on that note, I think this was a great presentation, a lot of good questions. And thank you very much. Thank you for the audience.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. For those that are interested, my website is astralinfo.org. There's lots of free information there. Okay, guys, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.